Welcome to Menon Thoughts, where technology, life, and growth comes together with purpose. I am Govind Menon, here to walk you through the challenges of your career and times of healing. Today's video is for those developers who want to grow in their career, but without giving up their love for coding. Been there, done that. So I thought I'll share that experience with you guys. So when I started my career, I was a pure developer, and everybody at that time used to push, saying that even during the appraisals and all, saying that you have to become a manager, you are not becoming a leader and stuff like that. And I pushed myself to become a good project manager. Few years passed, and then people started talking about it, saying that, hey, you're a good project manager, but you do not have technical skill set, right? I mean, you don't know what the technology is all about. So how will you manage a team? This is all during appraisals. And then when you start looking out for a job in another company, it normally comes up. That is one part of it. The other part is, I believe that you can only be a good manager if you understand the technology also well. So I have quite a few examples where my friends who took the path of being managers, pure managers, and they reached to the pinnacle of being a good PMO, right? A project manager. But they could not relate to what is happening on the ground reality in terms of what is happening with the development team. What are their challenges? What are their problems? And they became more sort of a manager, right? I mean, in the sense, who are only looking at deadlines, who are only looking at factors, which is like how to get it out of the door to the customer without looking at quality of the product, because that is not what a PM is supposed to do. His job is basically maintaining the timeline. I also did that for a couple of years. I think 3-4 years I was running teams based on that. And quickly I realized that what happens is basically I get disconnected with the team, and also in the process I'm straying away from being a technologist, right? So can you be a leader and still write meaningful codes is the biggest question that people have. And yes, you can. CTO role is that. Engineering manager's role is that. Probably not a delivery manager's role. I'm not talking about delivery manager role. That is a totally different role that is there. So if you take a path of becoming a Techno-Manager, you will probably at some time or the other end up being a technology officer, CTO, if you may, right? But if you take the path of being a pure manager, you would probably end up being a chief delivery officer. This is the two paths that are there. Do both of them have the same knowledge? Probably yes. In a lot of companies they do have, but people in between fade off, and that's why you end up being project managers. And you I mean, I'm not undermining the role of a project manager here at all, right? But that is for people who do not want to be in constant race of upskilling themselves. That is what I believe when you talk about a PMO role. But when you talk about a Techno-Manager role, you are actually playing a dual role of being a leader and also being hands-on with technology. Hence, you tend to become a technologist over a period of time, right? So that is how it works. So let's talk about this in the next sections and take a deep dive on this. So let's start with who is a Techno-Manager. Techno-Manager is not just a manager with a technical background, right? I mean, so let me be very clear on that, right? Um, a techno manager, according to me, again, it's again my opinion, as usual, he's not a person who was a team lead and became a manager because he has got some technical knowledge and he's a good people's manager. That's not what a techno manager is, according to me. A techno manager, if you want to really become one, he's a person who leads both the project and the people. So what it means, understand the product's direction, understand the domain well, and also is able to take architectural decisions. In the process, when required, he can roll up his sleeve and also be involved in the code, not just pure coding, right? Like picking up a functionality and doing a code. No, that is part of it, but also does reviews, code reviews, and give code suggestions, how to make the code better. Design reviews when a new functionality is coming in, whether it is mingling in into the system well, right? Not just say that, basically saying that this has to be delivered as a functionality and then just walks away, right, with a deadline or a timeline. And trying to use as much as tools possible to make coding effective. Okay. These days, I would say there's more people who are able to use AI tools to get, say, the infrastructure code out, like, I mean, the framework code out and all. But back in my days, I would say a person who is able to create TDDs, probably put his hands onto the DevOps side so that there is continuous integration and continuous deployment, stuff like that. But the most important factor, which is something that I think I was able to do well, not great but well, I would say, is being the bridge which communicates between the tech team and the business goal. Now the business goal could be a product roadmap, it could be a product delivery, understanding from the product owner and translating it into a technical communication with his team, right? So what happens normally is like, for example, there is a dev manager. He might be good in technology side. He might be able to hands-on code and all, but he might be struggling to translate what the product goal is to his team. So he is delivering well as a dev manager, but his team is not. So he fails as a development manager. He is a good, so I'll repeat it, right? So he's a good developer, right? So let's say the product manager in a particular scrum, which we had talked about in the previous video, comes out with 5 pointers and he says, okay, I'll pick one, the rest 4 you guys start working on, and he gives it to his team, right? But he's able to deliver his part because he's very good technically. He understood it, right? And he did it in whatever way, but he's not able to, because his team is there, right? And his team, he needs to communicate it to them what exactly the business requires in technical term. Okay, right? That is, it's a rare balance, one that makes you invaluable in an organization if you become that. Couple of times I had this privilege to work with people in a couple of big organizations, and I think that is where I was able to make a mark, right? So normally the product managers or in one of the companies that I worked in, they were more business guys, right? I mean, in the sense they understood the domain pretty well and they're good at putting the business requirement. So we were working for a healthcare product in that company. So those guys understood how a hospital works, for example, and they would then come out and give what the hospital really requires when we talk about this product, right? But then understanding it and then converting it into a technical requirement and handing it over to the development team, they were struggling. And that is where the Techno-Manager or a development manager, in that organization we used to call them as development managers, had to step in, understand it from the domain expert, convert it into a technical understanding, and then hand it over to the developers. So you can also call it as a domain expert, right? Domain manager, if you may, a domain technical manager. That's another way of putting it, right? So why this path matters, right? I mean, if you really want to become a CTO or a technologist, why this path matters is most companies today, I think, face a dilemma. Great engineers don't always become great managers. That's a normal thing that I think most of the people know about it. And many managers actually lose touch with technical over a time unless they take that conscious effort. I lost touch with technology a couple of times in my 29 years of career. There was a phase when I had become, as I said, I became a project manager and I lost touch with technology. And when I used to go into the interviews, when I had to move out of that particular organization because whatever reason, I mean, that company was bought over by another company and we were all let go. The old guys were let go. I struggled when I went into interviews because I was with that company for 8 years. So at that time, I was more, I had moved away from technology and become a good manager. Okay. I think this was in, if I'm not wrong, 2004-5. 2004-5. And I struggled because when I went into the interviews, I was able to answer everything on the level of project management, saying that yeah, we will do Gantt chart, and we used to use Gantt charts and all. We'll be able to put Gantt charts for project planning, how release management can happen, how build management can happen, everything. But when it came to the actual technical question, though I was a bit in touch, but I was not in touch, right? So I had a struggle at that time. And then there was a stage when I went into another company that was in 2008, 2009. I worked with them again for 7, 8 years. Halfway through, I think, I was so technically involved, but the company was growing and they expected me to actually hand over the technology side down. But by the time I had realized that if I do that, I will lose the tech side of it, right? I mean, in the sense, my knowledge of the product. In that same organization, when I moved from one department to another department, I moved in as a development manager. I think I was good with management of people, but the expectation was I would also be able to contribute as an individual contributor. And it did impact my growth in that organization, right? So then I left that organization, and ever since I have been working on various roles. Like sometimes, I mean, for 2 years I was as a solution architect, hands-on tech manager, stuff like that. But um, that's my take on that. I mean, that is why it is very important, and that's why I'm sharing this. This particular role, according to me, the tech manager role or a techno-manager role, gives you the best of both worlds, right? I mean, you stay relevant because you are in technology side. You stay within the business domain, so you are understanding the business side of it also, and most importantly, you are a technologist at the end of the day, right? It's also ideal if you enjoy mentoring juniors. I mean, because as a techno manager, that is one of the things your team keeps shuffling, so you can mentor the youngsters. You like system level problems, right? I mean, solving system level problems. What I mean by that is not a particular code, but at a level where how the entire application would work, how it integrates with other parts of the system or other parts of the product, or if it's a sort of like, I mean, if it's an ERP system, for example, if you're a techno manager in finance, then you would be looking at how inventory management, payroll systems, asset management, they will all come back and talk to your system, right? So that's one of the system level problems that I'm talking about. The other level is, let's say, if you're like, I mean, the healthcare product that I used to work with, I was working in a module called ambulatory module, which is like extension of hospitals. There, the challenge was like scalability, performance, and stuff like that. That was the challenge internally towards the team, because we used to process millions of records to give what we call it as PQRS or PQRI, that is physicians quality index. But also we had to communicate with the other systems like the core measures. We also had to communicate with the referral system that we had. So that sort of thing, it's like a system level thing. As a techno manager, you would be always on the lookout of how my part of the product or my part of the team is working with others. Not that the developers would not be. Your developers would be, obviously, and the architects will also be. But developers would be more focused on that functionality, if you may, in your team, right? So you are the one who is actually bridging between the other products and product lines. And if you are curious about both the product development and about people management, so it is not just coding, right? I mean, that is why it becomes relevant. Okay? Right. Hope that is clear. Right. So how do we achieve this? Right. That is the million dollar question, because you guys might be thinking, well, you're talking about all these rules, but how do I achieve it? So let me break this down into 5 actionable items, which I had followed personally. Sharpen your tech core, right? Always keep coding as much as you can. Keep being involved in different levels of coding, be it code, be it unit testing, be it TDDs, be it DevOps, be it Dockerization, be involved in that. Get strong at architecture, not just features, right? I mean, in the sense, look at, so I know, well, this analogy people must have heard. Don't look at the tree, look at the forest. Right? Don't look at just one piece of code, look at the entire architecture. Take a step back and look at that. Contribute to automation, infrastructure, and even quality. As I said, I mean, like quality assurance, how does it come? Unit testing. How does unit testing come? Not by manual unit testing, by TDDs. So you can probably sharpen in that areas. Part 2 is start leading small. Right? I mean, in the sense, take ownership of a small module, mentor the interns or juniors that come into your team. So like, I mean, let's say your team is a 10-member team, assuming, right? And then you have got a dev manager, you have got a technical lead and all those things, but a lot of companies now take interns and they juniors who come in fresh, right? So probably you can be a mentor to them. Drive small releases. So some of the product management or product development teams, what they do is they try shuffling the role of the release manager every few months. I mean, at least I have done that in my teams. That helps, because then a lot of a lot of people in your team become release managers. So drive small releases from planning to production. Small thing. Build these processes and processes for that particular small team that you're building, so that will help. This is second phase, right? Phase 3, build your people skills. Easily said than done. Improve communication, learn active listening and talking to stakeholders directly, right? I mean, who are there, especially if they're US client or something, talk to them. Understand how to conduct one-on-one reviews and feedback loop. This is the most important part of a manager, right? Not a technology side. This is for the managers, right? It's easy to give feedback, right? I mean, it's very easy to say to a person that you didn't do this right. But according to me, the feedback has to be in a progressive way where you tell him this is where you went wrong. If you do this, it can be better. Okay? That is the biggest skill set according to me that a manager has, right? And also identifying the right people in your team. Whichever company you go into, try to identify who is your key resources and stuff like that. The Dhoni video, Sachin Dravid Dhoni video, you can probably refer to that. That's in this channel itself, right? This I learned from one of the interns thing, and this one-on-one feedback I learned from my mentor, KK Babaraju. I have been talking about him in a couple of videos now, but yeah, he is the one who ignited in me this mentorship thing with youngsters and working with youngsters and all that stuff, right? And the feedback mechanism. Very crisp mechanism of saying that, yeah, this is the problem and this is a solution for this, for you, right? Not just giving, this is the problem. Okay? Phase 4 would be understand the product and the business. Since you have achieved all this, you should probably understand what are we trying to build? What is the end goal? What is the outcome of it? As a developer, you don't care about it too much when you're in the thick of coding, but that is how you become a Techno-Manager. Attend roadmap meetings, ask why before you jump into how. Right? Again, this jump into why, asking why and jumping into how, this is again from my mentor. Always ask that question. Right? Why are we doing this? Not how are we doing this? Somebody says this, somebody says this is a problem statement. First question should be, why are we doing this? Right? And then you should get into how it is being done. Connect the code with the customer's values. That is also part of this understanding of the product and business. Why this code is being written? Why this functionality is important for them? Is this critical? So every product, for example, has got user management, has basic masters and all those things. Try to see which is the most critical one and why is that so important. So for example, if it's a banking domain, you might probably want to look at user authentication and all as a primary thing, right? But if it is not, it might not be the one which is primary, but like in healthcare, the most important thing in the code is PHI, HIPAA policy, right? I mean, that is a very important factor. Understand that, why it is there. So similarly, each domain has got its own nitty-gritties, so you probably want to look at it from that angle. And the last part, which is sort of, I think is critical, is basically learn delegation without detachment. This is where I made mistakes most of the time. So I need to emphasize on this, right? Learn delegation without detachment. That is, what it means is know when to step in and when to step back. Okay? Very critical. You should know when you want to give your team that space, and you should also know when it is critical that your team needs you. So if there is something which is going on in a release as an example and you feel that your team can handle it, leave it. Okay, but if you see that after 3 days they are still running in circles, you thought that okay, they are they are on top of it, but after 3 days still they're saying they're working on it. That is when you have to step in, right? So try to take the priority on the most critical path of that particular release and see in those critical paths, is the team good enough to handle that? If they're able to good enough to handle that, you step back, you take a step back. If they're not, then you step in, right? And lead by example. Stay technical, that is important, but let others take the lead on the technical side. You should have all the answers on the technical side, right? But let your Sachin from the previous video, you will have to see that, and I'm giving that reference. Your star performer, let him lead the technical decisions, but you should know what he means by each of that thing, and whenever required, you just step in and support him. Last in this is basically create space for others to grow while you scale the impact, right? I mean, no, this is the tricky part, right? So how I have grown my teams is basically by the factor saying that I want to make myself irrelevant in the team. Risky, right? But that's what you have to do. You have to see the next you in the team who can actually take your role so that you can grow into the next role. Techno-Manager to, let's say, a VP of engineering or VP of technology and AVP of technology, VP of technology, and the CTO, right? That's what you should try. Okay? You should not be afraid of saying that if I give this person the responsibility, will he outshine me? He has to outshine you for you to grow. Otherwise, you will be in that zone always, right? So, yeah. So this was the roadmap. So before I close this, common pitfalls that I think you should avoid while trying to do this is basically don't burn out trying to do this. For trying to do everything yourself, you probably have to break it down into the roadmap as I suggested. Micromanaging instead of mentoring, don't do that, because that happens when you start doing mentoring. Sometimes you overstep and become a micromanager. Don't do that. Losing your hand on the edge by getting buried in meetings, right? I mean, in the sense, so since I said you should be in roadmap meetings, in connecting with the client and customers, so you tend to be spending too much time on meetings and all those things, and you lose the edge, right? When you're starting as a manager for the first time, you don't try to show off that you know everything. Sometimes happens that way. So don't do that imposter syndrome. Don't get into that, right? You are also learning with the team. You are also learning with the group that you have been chosen the leader of, right? So good example is these days, I'm pretty sure you guys are following Shubham Gill is going to take over, right, as the Indian cricket captain. I'm pretty sure they will fail in a couple of series and then they will learn how to play together. Dhoni had the same issue. Ganguly had the same issue. All captains had it. Rohit Sharma had the same issue. Virat Kohli had the same issue. So, as a manager, you are like the captain of the team. Okay? So, yeah. So, as I said, being a manager isn't that you don't need to know it all. It doesn't mean that. You just need to keep learning and keep showing up. That's what is a manager actually. You also learn, you also show up for your team, right? Keep learning in the process, but whenever your team requires, show up. take the failures on you and pass the success to your team, right? It's all about balance. It is all about service. It is all about lifting others up while still building things that matter. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I have for this video. Hope this video helped you in understanding what and how you can become a techno manager, and what is a techno manager, right? I mean, techno manager is not a product manager. He's not a delivery manager. He's a development manager, according to me. Right. So if you did like it, do subscribe to the channel and follow us. So we'll keep uploading such good videos, such educational videos in the future also. Right. This is Menon Thoughts signing off. Until we connect again, keep learning, keep caring.